Welcome to episode 2 of our long reining series. We'll be continuing from the last video using the English method. So this time we're going to cover introducing the lines around the back of the horse and what to expect. Confidence building for those of you with horses that may struggle taking the first steps on their own, and building up to ground driving or long reining on a straight line. So by now, hopefully most of you will have been able to introduce the steps described in the first episode, so we can assume that your horse is familiar with being lunged with the two lines, with the outside line across their back and the inside line coming direct to the rider's hand. At this stage we still want to keep the inside line out of the roller or stirrup. This is a stage that it can get a bit frightening for some horses, and if they do spook and run, you don't want to be levering their head to their side in an attempt to stop them. Now, if you follow the steps and listen to your horse's body language, this shouldn't happen in the first place, but we all know horses can be unpredictable, so we have to be prepared. So make sure you have your hat and gloves again. I would start at the halt. It can be a good idea to have a helper at this stage in case the horse does get spooked. You want to gauge your horse's reaction to having the outside line pass behind his hindquarters. So start with a small amount and work up until you're stood with the outside line around the quarters with a small amount of tension on the line to stop it dropping down. It's really important that you never let the outside rein drop too low down, as you risk the horse getting his back legs tangled in it. Ideally aim to keep it above the hocks at all times. Some sensitive horses do really struggle to accept the line behind the quarters. If this is the case, something I've implemented in the past is the use of a tail bandage. Now, it sounds a bit odd, but it has helped me to desensitise some spooky horses to the second line. Attach a nice stretchy tail bandage to either side of the roller. You do still need to be careful and desensitise them to this a bit. I do it up so it's not flapping around in the first instance. I would walk them in hand for a couple of laps of the school until they're relaxed, if they were tense in the first place. Then I would progress to lunge them first at walk and then once ready at trot. I wouldn't progress to canter just yet, unless you're really happy that your horse is happy. Taking it at the right speed for your horse can ensure that they don't go round in a bucking fit, as you've introduced it slowly and calmly, even if that means splitting these steps up over a few sessions. As they get used to it, I make it looser and repeat, and I tend to do this until it's about as loose as your second line would be. Once your horse is happy with this, you should now be able to add on your second line. I don't always take the bandage off to start with, as it can also help reduce the sensitivity in the back legs. So if the line lies across it, not directly on your horse, generally they're now used to the feeling of something on their hindquarters that didn't hurt them or pull on them, even if they did get scared, and they should now accept the second line. If they were to spook with the second line, it's easy for us to accidentally pull on the outside line, which of course tightens the feeling on the hind legs as well as putting them in the mouth, which can make it a worse experience. But with the bandage there's no risk of this, as it won't do either of those things if they spook. You can also use clicker training to build up their confidence with the second line, in a similar fashion as introducing the lines in the first place. Break it up step by step, clicking and rewarding at each attempt. Assuming that your horse is now comfortable with the outside line, I'd now feel happy to also thread the inside line through the roller. This enables you to move on to the next step, so you can change from circle work to working on a straight line, changing the rein, all the things that you would do when you're riding. When introducing ground driving, some horses struggle with the concept. Now this is perfectly normal, but can get you and them in a bit of a muddle. They're used to us taking the lead from the side of them. They know that they're meant to follow us and turn left and right when we do and stop when we do. But when you place yourself further back, we are asking them in a completely different way, one which they might not understand yet. What often happens is the horse will turn around and keep trying to turn around until they're facing you, which can result in them getting tangled up. This is where it can be really helpful to have a helper. Your helper can take the position of leader, whilst you take up your ground driving position. Make sure to coordinate between you what you're doing so you can start to put the new aids together with the ones they already know. So for example, if you ask them to walk on with a little wiggle of the line, it needs to be at the same time your helper asks them to walk on. When you ask them to halt, use a small vibration down the line and remember to use your voice as well, and your helper can use the same aids from the front, so your horse starts putting the aids he knows together with the new aids. Never pull your horse to get them to stop. As with riding, we don't want the hands to pull backwards. Remember, less is more. You can slowly wean them off the helper by getting them to step further away at each stage, so they are still there to help when needed until your horse can go from your aids alone. Depending on the horse, this could happen in one session, or it could happen over a few weeks. If you're on your own and don't have a helper, here's what you can try. Don't go straight to the back. Keep yourself nearby so your horse can still see you. That should help discourage them from trying to spin round to face you, although it can still happen, so be aware of what your horse is doing. Position yourself to the inside with the fence on the outside. This will help guide your horse forward rather than sideways. As they start to understand and their confidence grows, you can slowly drop back little by little. Again, you may need to do this over a number of sessions until you're able to get behind them safely, but that's okay. If you do have a spooky and sensitive horse, be extra careful when you get to the point of being behind them. Some horses may be wary about us walking behind them as they're less able to see us. If you choose to hold your excess lines in your hand, please make sure you don't wrap them up. A little tip is if you wrap your lines up in the opposite hand to the one that will carry it, as you need to lengthen them, it will unravel easily rather than getting stuck and potentially get wrapped around your hand. If this is a little bit too fiddly for you, then you can always leave your lines out the back. Just be aware that they can make a little bit of noise dragging on the floor, and some horses might not like this. You know your horse best, so make an informed decision as to whether your horse will be okay with this. Make sure to keep each line on their own side though, so you don't get your feet caught in the lines. And as for all horses, make sure you're at a safe distance when you are stood behind them. Once your horse is able to walk confidently on their own with you driving from behind, you can start to introduce some simple school movements. I'll go over these in more depth in another episode, the hows, whys and when to use them. For now, just practice some changes of rein, some circles of varying sizes, and maybe some serpentines, not forgetting to put some halts in there too. Don't worry if they're not perfect and a bit wobbly at this stage, it's perfectly normal. The aim for now is just to start adding a bit of steering and brakes. Your horse may get stuck on the track occasionally when doing these movements, but as they get more accustomed to what you're asking, they'll get better and better. As you and your horse's confidence grows, now you can start putting some lunging and some ground driving together. Try starting on a circle, like at the beginning, then slowly move to the ground driving position and go large around the arena. Adding in some school movements if you like. Change the rein and pick up a circle on the other rein. This is just the very start of the interesting things that you can now start stringing together, now you're able to long rein your horse. The last piece of the basics puzzle, for me anyway, is being able to change the rein through a circle. This can be quite tricky for the handler but also for the horse. Make sure your horse is really comfortable with the lines around their hindquarters. This exercise can feel a bit funny for them at the first as the pressure around the hind leg swaps from one line to the other. You need to do this exercise very gradually. Sometimes it can be best to perform at a halt first as you swap sides, so they get used to the feeling. Then progress to do it in walk. You want to think about the horse making almost an S shape around you, but don't forget you have to move too, or you'll get left behind and possibly jab your horse in the mouth. Once you've mastered these basics and your horse is comfortable and relaxed performing them, you can start asking some more complicated questions of them. In the next episode, we'll look more in depth at the school movements, how to perform them, correct any mistakes, and of course, why we use them.